Hi, welcome back. This is the second video in the introduction to the Land Rover restoration videos that I'm putting together. If you watched the first one, that was the station wagon, the long wheelbase, which you can see on the screen now. However, when I did the talk about that video last week, I pointed out that there was another chassis on display. Some people may have spotted it, and that's the one I'm going to talk about today. So, as I said last week, the long wheelbase has been in the family for 40 odd years, and when my father started restoring it a good few years ago, the engine that was in it was it'd seen better days. So we decided to have a look around to find a replacement that was, obviously we were doing this on a budget, and a few miles away between Manchester and Liverpool we found somebody that was selling an old lightweight, Series 3 lightweight. It was in very poor condition, and we just assumed that we couldn't do anything with it. The chassis had completely rotted through. The bodywork was in not the best condition. However, the engine in it was a relatively modern petrol 2.25 5-main bearing. So the plan was to, I think my father paid £100, something like that. The plan was to go and collect, take the engine out, scrap the lightweight, salvage what bits we could, and sell them on, and then use the engine in the long wheelbase, which was fine. When we got it home, the chassis, as was described, was in very poor condition, and we took the engine out and prepared it ready to go in the long wheelbase. And then shortly after that, I believe my father had a change of mind, and obviously we could not use the chassis. It was completely shot. There was hardly anything left. It could not be reused. However, he managed to get a good deal from Marsland Chassis, and they basically sold him a zinc galvanized lightweight chassis. I believe he got it for a fairly good bargain, as was his way. And so yet another project started, and that is what I'm about to talk about. So the actual chassis itself, when it arrived, it was delivered. It came on a big flatbed, and we carried it into the back garden. The garden was in better condition than this, and then he sort of spent the evenings working on the main running gear, basically just to get it up on wheels. He only got so far as the rear axle. You can see, those with the keen eyes can just about make out the front axle is actually still mounted. It's just none of the basically the wheels weren't put on it. But on the rear, the axle was done. It was in fairly good condition. It was stripped down, new bearings, new gaskets. It was running dry at this point because obviously we weren't thinking about putting it on the road at all. The thing that was going for it, and I think probably the reason why he changed his mind, was the actual bulkhead, which is a completely different design. Anyone that's used to the Series 3 but basically any of the series knows the overall shape of the bulkhead, whereas on the lightweight it is a slightly different design. You can see it's squarer along the top. You have the two door pillars, and they form part of a rectangular shape basically, and there's a beam that goes right across the top. And where on a series the bulkhead then takes a sort of 15-degree bend where the air vents go, you'll notice that they're missing on this. That's a completely separate part that bolts on through these holes here. So it means that it can be stripped down a lot more. And other than surface rust, the bulkhead was in fairly good condition. At some point in its history, somebody had modified the driver's side footwell, probably to take a V8. It's actually, instead of it being square and running parallel there, there's a slight dog's leg in it. It kinks slightly, and you can see that it's been welded in, it's been brazed in this panel. So my guess is that was done to make more room at the back, and we didn't want to put a V8 in it, we didn't have a V8. The idea was source another engine and put it in this. Now this picture, you can see the actual chassis itself. It's, as I say, it's galvanized. It's also been etch primed and chassis painted as well, so it's covered in chassis paint. So the actual chassis, even though it's covered in mould and green, there's nothing wrong with it at all. You can see the axles and the front leaf springs. They've seen better days as well. Again, it's just surface rust though. So a few years ago, when shortly after I moved the long wheelbase to start work on that one, we had to basically exit the garden. We were selling the house, and I decided to bring the smaller Land Rover to my house. I have a small sort of single bay garage that it would just about fit into, and so that was the plan basically. We took off the bulkhead, took the axle off, took the front and rear axles, took the wheels off, and got it into a position where I could bring it home in a transit van and put it in the garage and hopefully start work on it. And that's basically where it sat for another few years. Again, things tend to get in the way, friends, family, you know, other commitments, and it basically stayed leaning against the wall of the garage for a number of years. The good thing is it wasn't rusting. Everything was now out of the wet. And shortly before all of the COVID thing kicked off, about a year before, I sort of thought, right, I'm going to actually start doing this, because there isn't much to it, you know. And anybody that's restored a series Land Rover knows that it's like Meccano, that there are, you know, there's lots of parts, but it's not a particularly complicated vehicle to put together. So I started by working on the chassis. So basically, there wasn't really much to do. All I had to do was remove all of the green mould. So I basically took it back down. I took off the existing paint that was on it, reapplied etch primer, reapplied chassis paint. So I got that back into good working condition. I then worked on the springs. You can actually see them better in this picture. So the rear and front springs, again, surface rust and a bit of green mould. That was all that was really the problem. One or two of the bushes had gone, so I replaced those. So again, they were clear, they were taken off, they were cleaned, prepared, made ready. I did run into a problem with and it was kind of strange. The two front leaf springs, they were the originals from 1976. This model was made, and both front leaf springs, the front bushing completely snapped off. Where if anyone, people that are used to, I don't have a picture of it, so it's difficult to explain, but basically where the spring comes up to the bushing and wraps around the bushing, both springs decided while I was cleaning them that they'd fracture at that point, which is probably a good thing that they did do, because I wouldn't like that to have happened while I was driving. The springs wouldn't have come off. It would have fallen, and then it would have rested on the main part of the leaf spring. It wouldn't be held in by the hook as it goes around the bearing. So I had to source two front leaf springs. Luckily, I found via eBay somebody was breaking one and managed to find the exact same pair, which was good. You can see by these images here that the rear axle, again, a little bit of surface rust. I stripped that down. The insides I knew were in good condition because my father had done it a few years ago. I checked them out anyway, but basically I took the outer casing of both axles down to bare metal, etch primed, and then painted the back up again. so they were in pretty good condition. Now I did have all of the parts for the front axle. Here you can just see that it's the outer casing basically, but I did have all of the actual the gears and the bars, so they went in, and I was able then to get a rolling chassis. And I then found all of the panels, so they had been taken off and stacked in different places. They were scattered all over the place. So I went around and found all of the panels, and these aren't fitted fully at this point. This was just me bolting them to the chassis to make sure that I had all of the parts and that there was nothing missing. It also left it in a condition where I could then start preparing the actual body panels themselves, check for any damage, and basically just clean them up, get them ready. You can see in this image, by the way, this has the top part of the bulkhead added now. It's held on with one bolt, which you can see just there where the pointer is. But this part here, the whole top part, comes off as a separate unit, which is, I think, is quite handy, because I know that some people have major problems. In fact, I'm watching a series on YouTube now where somebody's actually in the process of rebuilding a complete part. It's quite impressive, and I wouldn't like to do it myself, but having the bulkhead in a position where you can just replace that top unit, in my opinion, makes good sense. So from this point, I knew I had all of the body panels. Now, what was missing were the driver's side door. I didn't have it at all. I believe when we actually bought this vehicle, it did exist. However, I believe it was completely rotted through, and when we came to dismantle it, it just fell apart. The result of that is the hinge. If you notice, the hinges on the lightweight are different from the series. So these are two parts, and the part that's attached to the bodywork basically just has a pin, and that's the male side of it, and then the female side is mounted to the actual door, so you can swing the door open and lift them off. So obviously this vehicle was designed for the military and desert work, basically anywhere where you may not want to have a door in the way. So these were designed so you could quickly and easily take the doors off. So the driver's side door was missing, and one half of the hinges were missing. So I had to basically manufacture. You can buy them. Again, I'm a cheapskate, so I opted to make some. The other part that was missing was the rear tailgate. Now, when we bought this vehicle, someone had fitted a hard top to it. So I did have a set of side panels and a roof. However, my plan was to have this as a fun vehicle, and you can't have fun in a hardtop vehicle. So the plan all the way back to the beginning was to put a canvas top on it, the way it should be. As far as I'm aware, they only ever came with a canvas top. If anyone knows different, please let me know. But as far as I'm aware, this particular version only ever came with a canvas top. So the actual engine, if you remember from my previous video, I was talking about the station wagon. I opted to put a 200 TDI in the station wagon. That then meant that the engine that came with this lightweight was now surplus to requirements. So I opted to put it back in, which, you know, why not? So that is the engine that came with it. You can tell from this picture that it needs a good clean. But again, I threw it in to make sure that everything was there, that it was basically running, and that I could make use of it, because at this point the engine hadn't run for probably best part of 10 years, so I just didn't know. I didn't know its condition. It ran when we first collected it, but a lot can happen in 10 years. So I do actually have, let me see if I can just jump out of there. I do have a video of when I got the engine up and running. So this is basically once I've got quite a lot of the bodywork done, and this was sort of just a test. Tested it. So it you can tell by the sound of the engine it needs a bit of work, but it does run, it does work, which is the important thing. So basically, during the first lockdown of the COVID, I actually did quite a lot of work. I got all of the running gear done, quite a lot of the body panels done. Now, this vehicle should go back, in theory, to green. It should go back to military matte green. However, I promised some people that I would not paint it green, political reasons. So I opted to go for Battleship Grey with black trimming, shall we say, matte black trimming. I opted to hand paint it. I sprayed some parts, some of the body panels, the larger ones, I sprayed in the garage. But most of the little bits and pieces were hand painted with rollers and Battleship paint, and that basically got me to this position here. So you can see the tailgate that I made. It was made with a few lengths of, I think this is 30mm square tubing. I just sort of cut it to shape and then put a sheet of aluminium on the back, and it works really well. It's a bit heavy than the original, but it does the job. It's there. I must admit, I do quite like the colour scheme, the grey and the black with the sort of the silver rivets showing through. Again, I'm also a cheapskate, and I didn't want to, partially because I couldn't justify spending the money on an Exmoor trim set of metal, you know, the tilt and the canvas. So I opted to make my own, and this was sort of the first test. So I used a pipe bender and got some 30mm conduit. Actually, it's not conduit. This is pipe. I think the wall is about 3mm thick, and basically measured up, cut it to shape, bent them to the approximate shape. They're not 100% symmetrical. They're out ever so slightly, but you would have to stand there looking at it for a good few minutes to notice the difference. And then started putting in the braces at the front. You can see that there's one here, but it's not there on this one. This is mid work. There's also some braces that go across and a middle piece that goes in between. If anyone's familiar with the way the normal tilt fits, you've got the two main frames, and then there's sort of a half frame across the top where there's a horizontal part that braces them together. I also made I'm not going to call it a headrest, but it fits up near the headrest, and that was so I could attach the seat belt into this part here. And I don't at the moment have any images. I will do an update following this showing the canvas top, because that is now done. Again, I sourced the canvas material myself and then started making the panels, and I quite like the finish. It's not quite finished yet, but again, it fits with the grey and the black. So I think this is the last image I actually have. So this is currently where it stands. Other than the canvas top, there isn't much more. There's a bit more painting to be done, as you can see. All of the electrics are in. The engine's cleaned, is now running. All of the rest of the running gear is working fine. And during the COVID lockdown, I finished it to the point where I could MOT, tax and insure it. Now, due to its age, it's under a classic vehicle road tax, so there's nothing to be paid there. And it's also you are also able to self-declare the MOT. So a nice lady at the post office taught me through filling out all of the forms. I then went and got some fully comp insurance, and I was then able to drive it on the road. So this when I can get the video to play. This is the first time the vehicle has been driven on the road legally in over 15 years, and it was quite an occasion. And for some reason, as soon as I started reversing onto the road, everybody decided to drive onto the road. Weeks had gone by and the road was almost empty, and as soon as I tried to reverse out, everyone decided to just suddenly jump on the road.
Sorry.
So there we are. I've never understood why people do videos in portrait mode. Monitors, TVs, films, they're all landscape, so hold the camera landscape. Anyway, it was good that she recorded it. But that's currently where we stand, so hopefully I will have some more videos soon showing the canvas roof and finishing off the body panels, basically getting it into a condition where I need to do the glazing on the windows on the both doors. But after that, it's pretty much in a position to use. I wouldn't like to drive it in cold weather because you would need to wrap up extremely warm. But hopefully over the next few months there should be some follow-up videos showing the final touches, and also I replaced the wheels as well, so you'll be able to see those at some point. But anyway, thanks again for watching this far, those that have stuck with the video. Not everyone does, but that's fine. But if anyone has any suggestions, any ideas, would like to know anything about it, please drop me a message. I'm more than happy to discuss this, or if you're working on a similar project, more than happy to discuss things where I've sort of run into problems. You know, any problems, any questions, please feel free to ask. So thanks again for watching. If you know anyone that would like to watch these videos, please pass on this information to them, and please watch any more future ones. Thanks for watching.